Richard Widmark. You ever met someone who can size you up before you've even finished saying hello? Well, picture a man who could peg a director's talent in less time than it takes you to stir sugar into your coffee. That was Richard Widmark, small-town kid, future Oscar nominee, and as you'll soon hear, a guy with a secret list of Hollywood heavyweights he just could not stand. Stick around because by the end of this story you'll know why 5 of Tinseltown's biggest names rubbed him the wrong way, and why he never lost a wink of sleep over it. Widmark's journey starts in Sunrise, Minnesota, a town so tiny you could blink and miss it on a Sunday drive. His dad bounced from job to job, his mom kept the family steady, and little Dick spent his evenings glued to the silver screen courtesy of a movie-mad Scottish grandma. She'd drag him to every cowboy flick in reach, sometimes 3 shows a week. Imagine a wide-eyed 4-year-old soaking up the swagger of Tom Mix and dreaming in black and white. That's how the spark caught fire. Because of his father's traveling salesman hustle, the family hop-skipped across the Midwest until they landed above a bakery in Princeton, Illinois. Widmark was the bright kid who ran plays on the football field by day and memorized Shakespeare at night. But junior year threw him a curveball. Mom and dad split. The house grew quiet, responsibilities piled up, and suddenly acting looked a lot like escape. Lake Forest College handed him a scholarship, and off he went, pre-law textbooks under one arm, a football helmet under the other. He even snagged 3rd place in a statewide speech contest, not too shabby for a guy from a bakery loft. The real game changer though was Aurora Jean Hazelwood, a drama student with a laugh big enough to fill the auditorium. She coaxed the shy junior into campus plays, and before long Widmark was drafting briefs by day and soaking up applause by night. Law school? Forget it. The stage had called dibs. By 1938 he'd swapped Illinois cornfields for New York City skyscrapers, chasing radio gigs and sleeping in a rented room that rattled whenever the subway rumbled past. Radio was the podcast of its day, live, unforgiving, and absolutely thrilling. Widmark sprinted between studios playing doctors, detectives, and occasionally the villain who left listeners clutching their armchairs. When World War II broke out he tried to enlist but got rejected on account of a bum eardrum. His kid brother Donald wasn't so lucky. The army scooped him up, sent him over Europe, and, after his bomber was shot to pieces, dumped him in a German POW camp. Donald limped home with brutal migraines and, eventually, a brain tumor that took him at only 37. The loss left a scar Widmark carried forever. Heartache or not, the show rolled on. Broadway director friends whispered about a 20th Century Fox audition, a sadistic killer named Tommy Udo in a thriller called Kiss of Death. Studio boss Darryl Zanuck wanted Widmark. Director Henry Hathaway took one look at the actor's high forehead and muttered, "Too smart to be a thug." Zanuck pulled rank, Widmark got the part, and history was made. First day on set, first scene of his film career, he ties grandma to a wheelchair and shoves her down the stairs, followed by that hyena laugh that still chills spines. The performance earned him a Golden Globe, an Oscar nomination, and a 7-year contract. "I thought this acting racket was a breeze," he joked later. "I haven't won anything since." Hollywood quickly learned 2 things about Widmark. He was a pro who lived for rehearsal and he did not tolerate nonsense. Which brings us to the infamous Widmark blacklist, the 5 fellow stars who, in his words, made the work harder than it had to be. Ready? Let's spill the tea. First up, Frank Sinatra. Smooth pipes, killer grin, legendary lateness. On The Detective set in '68, Old Blue Eyes strolled in whenever the mood struck, fired off his lines, then split for the golf course. Widmark, buttoned up, script dog-eared, coffee gone cold, was fuming. To him, acting was a craft. To Frank, just another gig between Vegas shows. Crew members swear they saw smoke curling from Widmark's ears. Next, Marlon Brando. Now, Widmark respected raw talent, and Brando had it by the truckload, but method acting? Forget it. Brando's habit of hiding cue cards around the set and riffing new dialogue on the fly drove Widmark bananas. "Some actors need chaos to create," Widmark once muttered. "I prefer focus." Translation: quit mumbling and hit your mark, Marlon. Third on the naughty list, Tony Curtis. They shared the screen in The Long Ships, a Viking adventure that required armor, long days, and, apparently, a mirror or 3. Curtis fussed over his hair, his tan, his clothes, while Widmark waited, sword in hand, rehearsed and ready. One assistant overheard Widmark sigh, "Style over substance, again." Number 4, Robert Mitchum. Cool as the flip side of a pillow, Mitchum prided himself on zero preparation. "I just show up and let the camera love me," he'd boast between puffs on an unfiltered cigarette. Widmark, who spent nights dissecting scripts like a surgeon, saw that attitude as a slap in the face to cast, crew and audience alike. They never traded blows. Widmark wasn't that guy, but the icy silence on set could frost glass. Finally, Kirk Douglas. Yep, the dimple chin titan himself. Too similar maybe? Two alpha personalities in one scene? Sparks. Douglas adored big speeches, booming gestures, the whole hurricane. Widmark felt there was room for exactly one storm per frame, thanks. When producers floated a co-starring gig, Widmark supposedly quipped, "If Kirk's in, find someone calmer, or find another lead." Yet for all the private grumbling, Widmark kept it professional on camera. Audiences never sensed the tension because he refused to shortchange the work. And the work kept coming. Panic in the Streets, No Way Out, opposite a young Sidney Poitier, Broken Lance with Spencer Tracy. After his Fox contract ended, he launched his own company, Heath Productions, named after his daughter Anne's middle name, so he could pick roles that intrigued him rather than padded a studio schedule. Offset, he retreated to a quiet ranch tucked in the California hills, swapping red carpets for horse trails. He once joked, "I'm cheap, not smart," whenever reporters asked how he kept his money in an industry famous for swallowing fortunes whole. Truth is, he preferred a steak on the grill with Gene and Anne to any Hollywood gala. But life threw another punch in 1956 when his mom passed, then again in the 90s when Gene was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Widmark stepped away from lights and lenses to care for her, proving that loyalty he played on screen wasn't just an act. After Gene's passing, the Connecticut farmhouse felt empty, and in time he remarried family friend Susan Blanchard, admitting, "Some kindness is worth starting over for." Honors piled up. A National Cowboy Hall of Fame induction, a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Directors Guild presented by Sidney Poitier, who traveled cross-country just to hand it to him. By his late 80s, Widmark's vertebrae were brittle, but his wit stayed sharp. "Movies irritate me now," he told Parade magazine. 12 hours on set for 2 minutes of film? Pass. He spent his final days reading Western history, feeding the birds and answering fan letters in a tidy hand. On March 24, 2008, the news quietly slipped out. Widmark had died at 93. No paparazzi chase, no hospital circus. Just the peaceful fade out he'd always wanted. Friends called him honorable, co-stars called him generous. A few actors, you can guess which, might have called him tough, but no one called him a phony. So what's the takeaway? Maybe it's that greatness isn't just talent, it's respect for the craft, the audience, and the people sharing the frame. Widmark's scowl for slackers wasn't petty, it was a reminder that every ticket buyer deserved full effort, every time. Now, if you just learned something new about classic Hollywood, or if you're plotting to binge-watch Kiss of Death tonight, do me a favor. Tap that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next deep dive into silver screen legends. Trust me, we've got stories coming that'll make backstage drama look tame. Until then, keep the popcorn warm and the lights low. I'll see you at the movies.